Good evening, and the Platteville Journal of the Main Street program welcome you to the 2014 Platteville Common Council Candidate Forum here in the council chambers and live on CenturyLink Channel 36. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's forum is intended to help City of Platteville voters make an informed choice in the February 17th Common Council at-large primary election, as well as in the general election April 7th, when two of these three candidates tonight will be on the ballot. Our intention tonight is to guide a conversation among the three candidates into city issues and how these candidates feel about these issues. So these questions were raised during journal coverage of city government, as well as email questions from journal readers from the last few days. We'll start tonight by introducing the three candidates and asking them what they feel the most important issue in this race is. And then we will conclude by asking each candidate why we voters should vote for him or her. In between, we'll cover the issues in the campaign, maybe even some issues that the candidates themselves bring up. There are no formal time limits for answers tonight, but I would ask the candidates to answer the questions completely but succinctly. So I would like to point out before we start this that all city voters, regardless of where you live in the city, will be able to vote in this race. This is not a district race. This is the at-large race. So going from left to right, we'll start with Tom Nall. He is a real estate agent, and he is a member of the City Plan Commission. He has been on other city committees and commissions before this. Angie Donovan is a former City of Platteville employee. She works at Manor Care. She is on the Animal Committee and the Tourism Committee. And Daryl Browning is the owner of Browning Motors, and he is a member of the Platteville Fire Department. So now that I have briefly introduced the candidates, it's time for the candidates to introduce themselves and answer, I should say, the question of why they're running. And we will start with Tom and ask him, why are you running for the city council?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm running for the city council mainly because the community has given me an opportunity to grow, to fulfill my family needs, and to provide me with an opportunity to run a business and succeed at that business. So I'm hoping to use those skills that I've obtained by running my business to apply those to the city council and to best meet the needs of the community as a whole.
Okay, Angie.
Good evening. I'm running for city council because I feel the need that I'm a different voice than what's on the council. I'm younger than the majority of the candidates, so I bring a different perspective. I have 4 young children, so I am vested in the activities and the things that go on in this community that affect not only the adults but the children. I believe I think that I have the support of the community to continue to help Platteville move forward. I've worked for the city, so I've seen the inner workings, so I do bring a different perspective to the position. And I'm looking forward to communicating and working with the residents of Platteville to help us move forward over the next 3 years.
Okay, Daryl, why are you running for the city council?
I'm running for city council because I feel that the Platteville is at a crossroads, that the next city manager that comes in has to be a person that is more motivated to move Platteville forward than what we've had. The other thing is I was at a city council meeting a year ago, and a gentleman expressed his opinion, his concerns on an opinion that our present city manager made, and one of our council people belittled him on that. I don't think this is, I think that as a citizen of Platteville, taxpayer of Platteville, you should have the right to come to city council and express your opinion without being belittled or attacked, and this happened again this year. So if I make it to the city council, I'll guarantee you that I'll do my best to ensure that you people have the right to express your opinions.
Okay. Thank you for that. That one question down and a whole bunch more to go. Question number 2, and we'll start with Angie first. The question is, what do you believe is the most important issue in this campaign, and what is your position on it? We'll start with Angie.
Well, I think, and Daryl pointed it out in his introduction, that one of the biggest challenges I think facing the council upcoming very shortly is the fact that we're going to have a new city manager. So the new individual, male or female, is going to make an impact on this community. So it's important for the council, I believe, to make the right decision to help Platteville move forward over the next few years, and the right city manager with the right fit, with the right council, will make that happen.
Okay, Daryl, what is your most important, what do you think is the most important issue in this campaign, and what's your position?
I think the most important thing in this campaign, and facing the, like I said before, facing the city, is the choosing the next city manager. On that, having been in business all my life and having had up to 10 employees, I can tell you that there's a huge difference in between people. And you want somebody that can sell Platteville, because this town needs jobs. On that industrial park out there is not growing at a real fast rate. It's growing, okay, but as far as industry coming in that employs more than 35 people and pays a living wage, we're falling short of that. And therefore, the choosing of the next city manager is extremely important.
Okay, Tom.
Well, I agree that choosing a city manager is very important for the community, as well as what happens with the city council in doing so. I've had experience with hiring not only agents but also administrative assistants, so I understand the process of what goes in to hiring a city manager as any businessman would. But I think there's more than just the city manager that we need to take a look at. We need to actually look at the vision that all the members of the community have for the community. We need to look at not only hiring a city manager, but what direction are we going to go in fulfilling the needs of the elderly, of the youth, of business, and everyone else that belongs to this community, is because it's just not hiring the right city manager. It's more or less having the people responsible enough in the city council to know what direction we need to let that city manager go in.
Okay, thank you. There will be questions about the city manager position coming up in a couple of questions, but before that, we're going to talk a bit about the city council specifically. And my question is, does the Common Council adequately manage city government, or is there too much micromanagement on the council, or is there is the council being led by people? And we will start with Daryl on that question.
Repeat it, please.
Does the Common Council adequately manage city government or not?
Has the city council managed the city government? Yes, we have. I mean, we have grown. Platteville's up 12% in population. So the city council has helped guide where we're going. I mean, the library project at the top of Maine, the city council had to have a lot to do with that. So yes, the city council is managing. Although I think that when it comes to the city manager, as far as the council was a little lax, and our city manager led the council more than the council led the city manager on that.
Okay, Tom?
I believe that the city council is given a lot of responsibility in directing the community and which way it wants to go. Whether the city manager or whether the common council have conflicts, I think in any type of situation that you have like that, you will have conflicts or you will have disagreements. I think the city council as a whole has looked at everything, and I don't think that we need to continually look at whether it's an adversarial situation. I think it's more of a cooperation situation where both the city council and the city manager can work together to fulfill the goals that we have for the city.
Okay, Angie.
It's not fair. I'm going to end up collaborating on what they both said. I don't think the city council has micromanaged the city manager. I think the city has progressed very nicely over the last few years with the development in the industrial park and out on the east side of town, I think, and with the library development project that's coming up this next year. I believe that there has to be communication and collaboration between the city council, the city manager, and the rest of the city staff and other outside sources, including the Main Street program and the Chamber of Commerce and PADIC, to help Platteville continue to move forward. So it has to be a collaborative activity versus just this is what I want or this is what this person wants. It has to be collaborative.
Okay. Now I have to read the question that I wrote here, which is actually just brought up tonight. Are city ordinances enforced equally on all citizens and all property owners or not? And we will start with Angie.
I think it depends on the ordinance. When it comes to residents of the community, I read the newspaper like everybody else and the police reports and see who's been cited and who hasn't. I've seen council members cited. I have seen other residents. I've seen college students. So I think that the city does a nice job of citing everybody equally. I think when it comes to development and modifying ordinances to bring additional businesses in, that if we have the law in place, we need to make sure that we're enforcing it with everybody and not one business or individual over another.
Okay, Daryl.
I'll answer that with a very short no.
You can elaborate if you like. You can elaborate if you like.
All I need is no.
Okay, Tom?
Well, I honestly don't know whether I can answer that question because I haven't seen it per se. I don't know whether there is any difference in how we enforce our ordinances with the public or with anybody else that's looking at development. If we're thinking about development, the only thing I can say is that there needs to be some special needs once in a while when development comes into the community. No matter whether it's Platteville or any other community, everything has to be looked at. So, but I haven't seen it, and so I have to say I can't truly answer whether there is or not.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the city manager question or position a couple of questions ago, and we're going to return to that now. This is about the city manager position. It's not necessarily about the present or past city managers. Is the relationship between the city manager and the common council as it should be? Is the relationship between the city manager position and city residents as it should be? And if you don't agree with either of those, what do you think should change? And we'll start with Daryl.
The relationship in between our present city manager and the citizens of Platteville is poor. I took, in my case, okay, I had a customer come into my shop and went, "You need to come into your office, and that there's water running out of your bathroom." I went into my bathroom and there was water shooting out of sewage shooting out of my toilet all the way to the ceiling. And I shut off the water and it continued to come. I looked outside and the city water department was working out there. I went out and asked them what they were doing. They said they were blowing out the sewer lines. And I took them into my office and showed them what was happening, and they turned down the pressure. Now, I called our city manager because he's the boss, to find out what I could, if there was any compensation for me having to clean up that mess. Plus I lost a lot of literature and stuff that I had stored on a shelf in the room next to it, and the sewage run through into that room. I finally had to get a hold of my alderman, Ken Killian, to get a return phone call from our city manager. And after I talked to him on that, he never followed up. And I got busy and never pursued it. But that is not the way for a city manager to treat the citizens of Platteville.
Okay, Tom.
The city manager's position is one where one has to understand what their tasks and responsibilities are, and to look at it as from a city council's point of view. I think the city council is there to give direction, to let the city manager know where they would like the city to progress, and to make sure that if the city manager is not doing that, in other words, not giving the staff the direction that they need to complete the tasks that the city council has for that city manager, then I think the city manager and the council need to find out what direction they really need to go. A city manager is a person that has a lot of responsibilities. I would consider them a CEO of a company. They're just like the CEO who gets directions from the board of directors of a company. And that's what the city council should do, is give direction to that city council or city manager so they know whether he's accomplishing the task or she's accomplishing the task that needs to be done for the community to grow.
Okay, Angie.
I believe the relationship between the city council and the city manager needs to be collaborative. Both parties need to be able to communicate effectively and listen to each other. The city manager brings a different perspective from being in the office, from meeting with their staff members, and I saw it when I worked for the city. There's different things that people in the community don't see, just like in a private company, that you don't see that goes on behind the scenes. So there has to be open communication between between the city council and the city manager, so that you can work forward towards a common goal. When it comes to the residents, the alderperson is who the residents are designed to go. I mean, that person, we're being voted in so that we're a voice for the people in the community. And it's our job as council members to collaborate with the residents and communicate concerns to the city manager. The city manager, though, also has to have an open door to the community and be personally vested in it and understand the community and the needs of it. Platteville's changed a lot in the 20 years from the time I went to school here till now. And I see it continuing to change in the next 20 years. So there has to be collaboration and the communication to work towards a joint goal between the residents and the city manager and the council.
Okay, the next question tied to that is, what kind of qualities should the city look for in its next city manager? And we will start with Tom.
Qualities that a city manager needs is to have experience is to have a knowledge of the community that he may be going to or she may be going to. In other words, it's like, why would we bring in a city manager that doesn't understand what's totally involved in city government? We need somebody that has knowledge not only in development, but in public relations and human resources, because our city manager basically has to do a lot of that, is the human resource person for the city, is also basically the person that helps development come into the city. Doesn't mean that they need to direct it, but they need to be of assistance. And that's where we need to have that, is somebody that actually has the experience and the knowledge to help the community grow.
Okay, Angie.
I think the next city manager needs to have experience. They have to understand Platteville. Experience working in a university town, I think, is essential as well. Working with diverse populations. Platteville brings in 8,000 new freshmen, 18 to 22-year-old students every year. We have a large aging population in Grant County that needs to be addressed as well. And then you have the school district, which is another whole age group. So it's important for the city manager to understand that it's not just one set of constituents, that there are a wide variety of people in Platteville with different concerns that do need to be addressed. They have to be, I think, an effective communicator, and they have to be a good listener. Because in order to move forward, you have to be able to listen to what the residents of the community want, what direction your council is giving you to move, and what the population of the community does want.
Okay, Daryl.
The quality for the next city manager, in my opinion, should be that he wants to become part of this community. Therefore, once he becomes part of it, then he will have the ability to sell Platteville. And when you have that, when you call the town your home, and that you, in attracting more industry, more people to town, you are a lot more real on that when you say you live here and your kids attend the school here, and therefore you will sell the town. And that's what we need, is somebody that can sell Platteville.
All right. Thank you. Now let's go on to a couple of other, or a few other city issues, I should say. The next question has to do with the city streets. By the city's plan, established a couple years ago, the city is behind schedule on fixing city streets. What should the city do to get back on schedule, or is adhering to a schedule important as far as you're concerned? We'll start with Daryl.
As far as the city streets, and the fact that we're doing less than 1 mile a year, and the streets are deteriorating at a faster rate than we're replacing them or repairing them, I think it's very important. In order to get back on schedule, we need to really examine line by line items where we can save money and what things this town can actually do without, okay, in order to get the infrastructure of this town back up where it needs to be. I'm a Platteville fireman, have been for 46 years. I can tell you that in the older sections of Platteville, there are a lot of water mains that are not big enough for us to fight a major fire on that street. On that, so when you talk about streets and infrastructure, that's where we need to invest, and that's why we need to go through the budget line by line by line on that, see where we can come up with the money without raising taxes through the moon.
Okay, Tom.
The situation with the streets has been an ongoing thing for a number of years. I just don't think it's been recent. We're in a difficult situation with budget cuts, with limited available funds from the state. And so what we have is a situation where we need to kind of take a time to look at everything, what is needed. The infrastructure costs have dramatically increased over the years. And with that, we have a situation where years ago we were probably able to keep those streets maintained and up and maintained and put in new streets. Now the costs are very dramatic. And so what we need to do is to look at everything, but there could be cooperation within the community in which we might be able to bring other means, other things together so we can accomplish that. I think the next city manager will need to take a good look at the city streets and how we can accomplish that. And that's one of the directions I, as a city councilman, would like the city to direct the city manager to do. The council can't, in my opinion, bring that about unless they give direction. So that's what we need.
Okay, Angie.
Daryl and Tom both brought up very valid points with the fact that there is a deficit in infrastructure, and costs to improve it have gone up drastically over the years, which I think is one of the reasons that a lot of the street projects and infrastructure projects have been postponed or delayed. I think it's important that the new council and the new city manager, sit down and truly prioritize, in conjunction with the department heads and the people in the streets department, as to what needs to be done, how we can accomplish it without raising taxes, how we can get additional funding sources to help with it, and to set a plan for the next 5 years that is realistic. So a project that was supposed to be done in 2017 isn't delayed till 2018 and then 2019. It's not just a city problem. If you look at State Highway 80 through town, that project was delayed how many times with the roundabout and everything else. So it's not just a city issue. It's something that's coming down from the state and from the federal level as well that needs to be addressed. And we have to be realistic when we're budgeting for projects 5 years from now, to realize that we're probably not going to have the state funding 5 years from now that we're getting currently.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to a couple of questions about partnerships that are not taking, partnerships that don't exist right now. The city has been discussing having Southwest Health handle EMS services to take over the EMS service. Do you support this proposal or not? And if you do, why? And if you don't, why not? And we'll start with Angie.
I see pros and cons to working with it. I don't know a whole lot about the proposal that has come through. I know there have been significant amounts of discussion regarding this. I know at one point in time, a couple of years ago, EMS was not costing the city anything, as far as it wasn't an expense in the budget. It brought in enough revenue to offset what its expenses were. The advantage to Southwest Health taking over would be the fact that we could have a paramedic squad. But if the fact is that EMS isn't costing the city any money, I don't think we should be paying Southwest Health Center $200,000 a year to run the program either. So I would have to do a little bit more investigating into it to have a true answer of whether I support it or don't.
Okay, Daryl.
Basically, this young lady covered my opinions on that. If it's not costing us money, then why change it? The other thing is, once we turn over something that the city controls and things go awry, then it will cost us double or triple or even 4 times to get it back. on that. So as far as the citizens of Platteville, I think the EMTs have done a great job. I know they come flying by my place of business sometimes 3-4 times a day, and the from what I hear on the streets, the people that they're going to take care of, they're doing the job.
Okay, Tom.
Now, I'd be very frank with you, I don't have enough knowledge about this to really make a decision on what's best for the community.
Okay.
I just don't have the knowledge.
Okay. We'll move on to a little bit more general question along that line, which is, do you believe the city needs to explore more partnerships outside of city government? For instance, with the school district, UW-Platteville, Grant County, other units of government in this area, or even going into the private sector. And if you agree, then in what areas does the city need to look at creating more partnerships? And we'll start with Tom.
Well, I totally believe that the city needs to do more partnerships with other governmental agencies as well as private investors, because we are in a situation where we have a community that can grow. It can accomplish a lot, but we can't do it all by ourselves because we just don't have the tax dollars to do that. So in order for us to work with the school district, with the county, with the state, and with the federal agencies and federal government, as well as private investors, we can do a lot of things for the community that we aren't able to do now. And I think the council needs to take a look at what avenues there are and what's available, not only now, but what can be available in the future.
Okay, Angie.
I think up until this point, the city has done a fantastic job in collaborating with outside entities. From working in the city, I know that we are involved with Grant County Economic Development. There's a partnership with PADIC. There's a partnership with the Main Street Program and the Platteville Chamber of Commerce. There has to be a partnership with the university, with the development that they have and the economic impact they have on the community. I know our individual departments work, and I'm going to pick on the fire department and EMS specifically, and the police department work collaboratively with Grant County Emergency Services. They work collaboratively with the Joe Davies hazmat team and other things like that. So I think there is a lot of collaboration. I think there have been a lot of public-private partnership developments that are going on, including the library block, because that is a collaboration between the city and a private developer. I don't think there's a time at which we should say no. We should always continue to build relationships to continue to move Platteville forward.
Okay, Daryl.
If it'll save us money, I'm all for it. Just like Angie brought up, as far as hazmat teams and that, and emergency management, the equipment that they can bring to a scene has saved Platteville taxpayers a lot of money. So as far as if we can enter into a partnership and services don't go down, and yet costs are much, much lower because we've done this, then I'm all for it.
Okay. Related to that, and maybe this has already kind of been answered, but I will ask anyway. The state has been reducing aid to the city of Platteville for several years. How should the city deal with declining state funding without just raising taxes? And we will start with Daryl.
Well, like I said before, the budget needs to be gone through line by line by line. There are a lot of ways to cut costs. There's a outsourcing of jobs is just one. Giving our next city manager incentives more than just a baseline salary. I mean, if I wonder if Larry Berkey would have had the opportunity to get a bonus check for bringing more industry into town, if it would have made an impact on that. So I think that by setting up a incentive program for the next city manager coming in would be a good thing for the city of Platteville.
Okay.
Because then we'd get a return on the dollar.
Okay, Tom.
When it comes to the state budget and what's allocated for the city, for city governments, it's very difficult. It's going to be difficult, I think, for the community to come together and realize that there might be some areas where we may need to make some cutbacks. There may not be. I think the city manager and the city council have the duty to the citizens of Platteville to arrange for some type of collaboration with maybe other entities to see whether we can't bring in those what I would call services that we supply the citizens at the present time. That may mean outsourcing, as was mentioned, or it may mean that we have private industry do some of those things as well. But it's going to be difficult, but I think that's why we need good people on the council to look at everything and make sure that when we make those decisions, we have the citizens in mind and the taxpayers.
Okay, Angie.
I think with we are going to face budget cuts coming down from the state. It's inevitable. We've already seen a decrease in it. I think it's important for the council and the city manager to be realistic when they're planning, doing the comprehensive plan, to sit down and look at, okay, we're getting this much right now, but in 5 years, let's plan for, say, a 20% cut in our funding. In 5 years, if we only have a 10% cut, then that's more money in our budget to be able to do more with. We need to, I agree with Dale, go through and make sure that we are eliminating excess spending and finding additional revenue sources, and that's going to be done through potential grant writing, which I know a lot of the departments in the city have been very active in. It's going to be through collaboration and partnerships with other entities, both public and private. So we have to find other revenue sources and not increase taxes just to improve Platteville.
Okay. The city is perhaps known most as being the home of UW Platteville. So that's what this question is about. How would you evaluate the relationship between the city of Platteville and UW Platteville? Cooperative, combative, too much UW Platteville influence, whatever characterization you would like is the question. And we'll start with Angie.
UW Platteville is a huge piece of what Platteville is. Like Steve said, it's one of the things that Platteville is really truly known for. Without the students, a lot of our businesses wouldn't be able to thrive the way they have, because students do bring, and their families bring, an economic piece to the community. I think the relationship needs to be collaborative. We need to look at, when the university chooses to expand, how is that going to impact the residents in the neighborhood? How is it going to impact the businesses in the community, and what can we do to enhance both entities? The university growing is good for the community because it means community growth as well. Additional population includes additional funding from the state and federal governments. So increasing our census with college students isn't necessarily a bad thing, as long as there's not an offset in the expense that goes along with it. I think the relationship at times has been very good, and I think at other times has been very adversarial, and I think there's a lot of conflict in the perception between the residents of the community and what the council and the city have done in conjunction with the university. So I think it's important that everything is transparent as to what's going on, and that people in the community understand that university development also means development for Platteville.
Okay, Daryl.
The relationship in between Platteville and the university has been more in favor of the university as far as benefit goes. And I point to the fact that down on Chestnut Street and anywhere around the university, you cannot park on the street unless you have a permit. I also point to the fact that the last 2 dormitories that they built, they did not adequately address parking on that. Parking is a real problem. Okay. Do I believe that Platteville would be where it'd be without the university? No. The university has been a driving force to a sleepy old town, okay, on that, and has made Platteville grow despite itself on that. So therefore, the relationship between the university and Platteville should be that the university should be treated fair and equal, okay, but also that the city should go, hey, you need to address this problem such as parking when you're putting up 600-room dormitory on that.
Okay, Tom.
Well, I think we need to review what the university's objectives are and what the community's objectives are. The university is there to provide an education to a student body that encompasses all ages, ranging from 18 to 60, 65, 70, who knows? But the fact is that when the university is doing things, they're basically under a rule of the Board of Regents of what they can do. They can make plans, they can inform the Board of Regents how they would like to proceed. But again, we as a community have to understand that they have one objective, and that is to educate the population in the state of Wisconsin, or they educate people so they can become more prosperous citizens. We also have to understand that in Platteville, sometimes our objectives are not always going to be the same as the university. So for the council and the university, or the community and the university, I think we need to understand where each of us are coming from and understand that it's more in the interest of both parties if we can collaborate. It doesn't always mean that we're going to agree, doesn't always mean that we're going to come up with the same decisions that we would like, but at least we can be together, because without each of us, neither of us can grow and help each other.
Okay, let's move on from that to another subject that comes up kind of on and off, really. Is the city adequately promoting business development, economic development, and downtown development? And if not, what should be changed? And we'll start with Tom.
Well, I have to say that in a recent article that you had in the paper, that Platteville is considered one of the major communities, small communities in the Midwest that can bring in small business. And small business is something that I think Platteville needs to look at, how we can improve it, how the city council and other entities within the community can help small business grow. And that means that we need to look at a number of incentives. It means that maybe we need to look at the university. Maybe we need to look at ourselves as a community and say, we have an opportunity here, to grow and to prosper, to bring young people in, to bring people in that have business knowledge or want to start a business so they can live here, so they can prosper here. That's what we need to look at. And with small business, that's only going to come from within the community and with us working with other governmental entities, such as Small Business Administration. When we look at more people, more developers coming in, we need to look at what our needs are. As being in real estate, one of our greatest needs is to have affordable housing. Affordable housing for first-time home buyers, as well as affordable housing for those who are moving in because of employment. We just don't have it right now. And we need to look at different means of providing that. And we can do that if we work together. There's a lot of investors out there that would love to help us. We just have to find a means of obtaining them and bringing them to our community.
Okay, Angie.
I think Platteville has done a nice job bringing in new business. We have brought the development on the east end of town, which has happened over the last 10 years. I do believe that there is room to improve. We have some businesses on some storefronts on Main Street that have been sitting empty for a few years. And I don't think it's from a lack of effort from those that are invested in the community. I think it's other outside sources that are causing the problems or the not helping with the solution. I agree with a lot of what Tom said. It takes people within the community to make development happen. I think Benvenuto's is a great example of that. It was a collaboration of a lot of different people coming together to bring a new business to town, and it seems to be a business, at least appearance-wise, it seems to be doing very well, which is good for the community. It's good recognition, it's good food, it's good service, and people are going to come out here and support it. And that's just because it's a new business that I'm kind of picking on it. I could say the same thing about Cold Fusion down on Main Street that has done a phenomenal job reinventing what it is and seems to be doing well. Every time I'm in there, there's people in there. It takes business owners, I think a collaboration with the university is great because there's a lot of great ideas coming out of the university, out of these younger people that can help enhance Platteville. I think partnerships between students and business owners to bring new product lines or new development or some new nuance to the business is advantageous as well. I think we have the opportunity to continue to bring new businesses and new people to town and continue to grow.
You had to mention restaurants when some people in this room haven't had supper yet, but maybe that's our answer. Daryl.
As far as small business goes and attracting it to Platteville and incentives that Platteville has offered, I've been at it for 40 years, and I can tell you that never has the city come to me and offered any incentive program for me to expand or help me expand. So I can only speak from personal experience. The other thing is when we talk about young people, almost 50% of this town is under the age of 24. That's because the university students are counted. So we have a lot of young people in this town, and if the idea is to attract small business and grow small business that are going to come from that source, I'll take you down and we'll stand down by the dorm and ask how many kids have got ideas on how to grow Platteville. And their answer will be, huh, on that, because they're here for the education. And once they get done with that education, they plan on leaving Platteville, not to live here on that. So as far as the making the small business goes, I go back to one of my original statements. In the city manager and even our department heads, we need to incentivize them to bring the businesses in and look for them. Because having been a new car dealer, I'll tell you what, when they doubled the rebate, my sales went up.
Okay, I want to follow up on that question with a question that kind of came up from all of your answers. UW Platteville, of course, graduates hundreds, if not thousands, of students every year. They are all obviously holders of college degrees. Every community around wants people like them to move there. At the same time, there's been talk also, this has come up earlier tonight, about getting young families to move into Platteville. So what should the city be doing that it is not doing right now to try to get those two groups, young families and then also college graduates, or college graduates who are young families, to come to Platteville? And we'll start with Daryl.
Well, it's pretty simple to get college graduates to come here, offer him a job that pays him a living wage on that. As far as getting young families to come here, then it goes back to the $15 million school referendum that's coming up, and what we can offer for people with children with special needs. And also activity. It goes back to small business. I mean, are there restaurants that they like to eat at? Is there one of the bars that has the music they like to listen to and a dance floor if they like to dance on that? So that, but it basically, when you're looking for young families to come, you had better be spending most of your effort on your schools and what you offer children. And Platteville does a great job. I mean, you go up to Legion Field and watch people play baseball and programs that are offered for young children to learn and participate. Is for that aspect, the former management of Platteville has done a good job.
Okay, Tom.
I think that for Platteville to accommodate new families and young people starting businesses is a place where we can look at the university and also the community. Many times our tax levy has a lot to do with people moving into the community. It is one of the highest ones around. Many people talk to me when they're coming into Platteville, especially from outside areas, especially from outside the state of Wisconsin. It's very difficult for them to understand why real estate taxes are as high as they are. Now, some of that we have no control over. That's done by the state. It's done through the schools. And as a city council member, I don't think I want to even conjecture what we can try to do with the schools to lower the taxes that they need to support the students and the education of our children. I think what we need to do is to look at basically ideas that are outside the box. Let's start thinking about how we can maybe have incentives for new people moving into the community to have developers provide those incentives. Maybe we need to look at some of the development that we presently have and how we can change those development structures so they are more enticing for people to move in. There can be different means of doing tax incentives with developers. There's means of going ahead and actually working with the university in doing cooperative efforts with their programs, business programs, their agricultural programs. There is a lot of intelligent energy that the students have that they can provide to the community. But sometimes we don't always maybe ask them or come up to them and say, hey, you have an idea. If you stay in this area, we'll help you stay in this area. If you want to do a project, you want to start a business, maybe we can do certain incentives for you. If you stay for 5 years, 10 years. But it's a situation where we need to look at things outside the box. Not what has been done, but what can be done in the future.
Okay, Angie.
I agree with a lot of what Tom said as far as what can be done and the changes that can be made. As a young family member, when I moved to a community, I went to college here, I moved away to Milwaukee. I did not grow up in Platteville, and I came back here 4 years after graduating to raise my family. It's a great community to live in. It's a safe community, and I think that's one of the things that people need, that as a parent I look at when I was deciding where to live. My husband had a job, which was good. He worked at the university. I was able to stay at home and do in-home daycare for those people that did have to work. So I was able to stay at home, which is a huge advantage for me. I enjoyed being able to spend time with my kids, and I think Platteville, with the opportunities we have, afford parents the opportunity to be able to do that. We do have a lot of in-home daycare facilities in Platteville, as well as other centers for children. I think our recreation department has done a phenomenal job providing activities for the young people in our community, and not just young children, but adults, with the softball leagues that play, in the summer, and the basketball and volleyball, all the different activities. I think recreation department has done a phenomenal job, and I think the businesses have done a nice job supporting those programs through various sponsorships as well, which is a great partnership, a way to help residents save money yet still get involved in the community. I definitely think there's room for improvement. There's a lot of things. When you look at Platteville, and as my oldest has just turned 13, I'm looking in 3 years, 4 years from now, when he's driving and out and about, where is he going to go and what is he going to do? And I want to make sure that we continue to have opportunities for people besides, as they get into college, just the bars, things for people to do here in town, and make people realize what Platteville truly does have to offer.
Okay. The next two questions are about issues that the city council has dealt with in the last couple of years, and your evaluation of whether what the council has come up with has worked or not. The first one is about parking downtown and around campus. The city instituted 2-hour parking in much of downtown, most recently expanded it to 3 hours, permits in the area of the campus. And I guess I'm interested here in your evaluation of whether what's been done has worked or not. And if you believe the answer is no, it hasn't, what should be done differently? And we'll start with Angie.
However you define a parking problem is an individual thing. Having worked in City Hall while we were going through the permitted parking zone over for the residential area from Chestnut to Water Street, if you define a parking problem, and I had the same thing when I had worked in Lancaster, if you define a parking problem for your downtown as not being able to park in front of your business and walk straight into it, and you have to walk half a block or a block, then yes, Platteville probably would be defined as having a parking problem. I personally don't believe that having to walk a block or two to get to businesses is a challenge. I think moving the parking with the number of hair salons and like the bridal boutique that we have on Main Street and the restaurants, I know I've gone downtown for meetings and ended up being there more than 2 hours. I think the decision to go to 3-hour parking downtown was a very astute move by our city council. There is 24-hour parking downtown for the residents that live down here. I think there needs to be you have to think outside the box and come up with a solution, because there are a lot of apartments downtown where college students are living, or even families are living, and there's not enough parking for those people. So that is a concern that needs to be addressed. With the parking around campus, I think the campus has done a nice job. Again, it's perception. I think there are enough parking places on campus if you've counted the lots and everything. It's how far do you want to walk? The college students won't walk from a parking lot over by Williams Fieldhouse to the new residence hall over on Chestnut, but they'll walk from Huguenin Hall down to 2nd Street, and that's not a problem. So I think it is defined as perception, and I think the city council has done a nice job addressing things. When businesses came forward and said 2 hours really isn't enough, people that are coming in to pick out flowers for a wedding or coming in to get their hair done, 2 hours isn't enough time for some of them to be in there. I think the city council made the right move. They addressed the concerns of the business. They invited the public to voice their opinion, and they made it, in my opinion, a very good decision.
We will get to 2nd Street presently, but first, Daryl.
The parking problem downtown, from the fact that I work 6 days a week and most of the businesses on downtown are closed when I get off, I don't visit downtown as much as I should on that. The fact that having attended city council meetings off and on for the last 3 to 4 years, there has been a lot of citizen complaint about parking downtown. Now, whether the city can afford it or whether it can't, whether you be for or against this, I think the city needs to address downtown parking, and there's a lot below Elks Club that belongs to the Bolt family that maybe the city could buy. We have Chicago's Best down here that burned out on that, and the Randy and his wife have not done much, and from what I understand, that it's being foreclosed. So possibly there is a chunk of land very close to downtown on that could be bought and a parking ramp put in on that. Now, like I say, these are just ideas. These are not things that I am for or against, but I do believe we need to address downtown parking on that. As far as the university having adequate parking, the other day I had a young lady come in that gets up at 4:30 in the morning and milks cows. And then she goes at night and milks cows. Admire her. You're just proud to have met her, that somebody that would work that hard to pay for her education. But she was begging me to have me let her leave her car on my land. So, and she had three $50 parking tickets, because when she come home at night and circled those lots out at the university, there was no spots open on that. I had a young man last year that picked up almost $250 in parking tickets on that, because he worked on a farm and got in late on that. So the university has a parking problem on that. Just talk to the students on that. They've got the tickets to prove it.
Okay, Tom.
I happen to agree that it is perception. How many of us go out to Walmart and whatever, and we walk a distance sometimes when we go out there to go into the store. And that's no difference than what we have for downtown. And the fact is, sometimes we have to walk that distance. And we're not, it's all in perception. That store should have something available for us right there. Or maybe the owners feel that they would like to have parking closer than what it is. Perception, perception, perception. If we take a look at everything and honestly look at the situation, we can come up with solutions that everyone's perception can be satisfied. What I think with the university is I've talked to a number of people around the university that have had the situation where they had the controlled parking, and all of a sudden they said, I don't think there's a problem. I don't think there's anything that's really has caused any major concerns. We have few students park, but most of the cases you don't see a lot of student parking on a lot of those streets. The university is, in a sense, in their long-range goals, thinking about trying to minimize students having vehicles, to make it a situation where they're not able to always have to have a car to go from one end of the campus to another. We've been working with the university, the committee, or I mean the council has, and trying to find avenues in which we can solve some of those situations. So, yes, perception-wise, some of us do have a problem with parking. And that's probably going to continue until we can come up with different means of either changing our perceptions or satisfying those perceptions.
Okay. I said 2nd Street was going to come up. And so I can't remember now if it was last year or the year before. The city instituted a public intoxication ordinance and did some other things to try to deal with the large number of police resources that are spent in the immediate area of the first couple of blocks of 2nd Street. Obviously, I'm talking about underage drinking and excess drinking and so on. So my question is, are those measures that the city took, do they appear to have been successful or not? If you believe they haven't, what needs to be done more? And we'll start with Tom.
Well, years ago, I used to go to 2nd Street quite a bit. So, but I'm not in that situation anymore. So I can't really know whether there is bad situations or whether there is an out of control situation, because I don't participate in 2nd Street very much, if at all, anymore. But I think that comes with age. But I understand that there has been some concerns. There has always been concerns in Platteville when it comes to drinking, college students. I've had homes listed where I've had signs torn down. Vacant homes have been broken into. Those situations happen. And it's one of those evils that we have with the university that we don't especially like. I don't think the university likes, and especially I don't think any of the tavern owners or the bar businesses downtown like. It causes everyone concerns. So, but me directly, I don't know of any situations where it's made a difference.
Okay, Daryl.
In order to evaluate that question, you'd have to go and really count how many more tickets were wrote this year and how many fewer complaints we had on that. I think that I was at a council meeting where they were discussing making the bar owners supply rides or help the young people that maybe had one too many get back to the dorms without yelling and hooting and hollering going down Main Street. Or I lived on Division Street for 30 years on that, and when the bars would close in the summertime, you knew you could mark it on the clock on that. But I really don't feel that when we put more law enforcement on, it costs us more money in taxes to support the police department is a solution on that. The solution is that we should be making the bar owners who profit from this address the problem, because some of the bars here in town, I know at least one of them that offer shuttle services to their customers on that. And from what I've read in the paper and having my business not too far from Uno's down there, they don't seem to have a real problem on that, at least that I'm aware of.
Okay, Angie.
I don't know, without looking to see how many tickets were issued and in comparison to previous years, if it was an advantageous move, but I believe it gives our police department an opportunity to fine people for behavior that is inappropriate. It's just another tool for the police department to use, assuming they haven't increased man hours. And my understanding of the law was it was only, you know, it gave them a different avenue to ticket somebody for something that they were doing that wasn't appropriate but didn't fall into any other category. So if that's the case, then I do believe it was a good decision. It was just another tool for the police department to use to help enhance the community.
Okay. We'll move on now to a question about a project that is in progress right now. That would be the library block project, which has changed somewhat from the original plan for the project. So my question is, what is your opinion on the proposed library block project as it currently exists? And I ask this because somebody asked me to ask this. Does the city really need a new library? And we'll start with Angie.
To answer the second part of the question, yes, I believe the city of Platteville does need a new library. Even with changes in technology and people reading on their Kindles and tablets, I still think there is a need for print books. My kids go to the library on a regular basis. They need more space for the books that we have, for the new books that are coming out, and for programming that they offer, between the computer classes that they offer to free for the public to learn Excel and Word, which are basic skills in business that anybody has to have. And my mom ended up going back into the workforce after she had been out of it for quite a while and didn't have those skills. So for her to be able to take a class like that would have been very advantageous. So the fact that our library offers that opportunity at no cost to be able to offer it to more residents, I think would be advantageous. I think the library block development, the changes I think are very good. I'm glad they're not putting housing in down there. I think a hotel in the downtown area is going to be beneficial to our businesses. The couple of concerns that I have regarding it are, is there enough parking provided? Which I know was addressed at the open house they had a couple of weeks ago, and it appears that there are enough parking spaces. The hotel isn't going to be full when the library is open, and vice versa. The only other concern that I would have is that with the traffic flow, that there's enough with the stoplights for traffic to get through effectively. I want to make sure before this development would go through that that concern has been addressed, and any concerns that or any issues that would arise with that would be addressed ahead of time. But I think overall it's a very good development for our downtown.
Okay, Tom.
Well, the question was answered. I agree with many of the aspects of it. One thing is, a lot of people are looking at, well, why is there a motel coming in when another developer was looking at also putting a motel in? And that developer backed out for a number of reasons. But a developer, when they come in, has to take a look at a number of things. One is there a need? Second is, how will it fit the needs of the community? Third is, am I going to take that investment that I put in and be able to make a profit? First thing is, Platteville needs a library. If you've ever been in the library, it is very tight. The downstairs is what I would consider an area that really needs concern. And we need to expand. There's the internet, there's Kindles, there's everything else. But let me tell you, the services our present library does for the community, and not only our community, but also for surrounding communities, is great. We service not only Platteville, we service the surrounding county areas. And that brings in people that then have good things to say about what we're doing. And when we look at people moving into the area, one of the first things that I do when I meet with new doctors or new faculty or new staff coming in is I provide them with literature on what's going on in the community. And one of the most important things I give them is about the library, because it meets the needs not only of children, it meets the needs for adults, for senior citizens, and for those who do not have the means to get those computers or Kindles or anything else. So we need expansion of the library, because for the community to grow and prosper, a good library does that.
Okay, Daryl.
I can remember when the library that we presently had was built, and it moved from a little postage stamp right across the park here. At that time, some of my customers were on the boards and they expressed that the new library being built did not meet the needs of the future. So as far as us needing a new library to offer services that these people brought up, yes, we do. The other thing is I was at a meeting in January as to the new library on that, and at the end there was a question and answer session, and Larry Berkey and the developer was there. I asked this question. First of all, the way the library is going to work, for the first 7 years, the city of Platteville will lease back the space for the library for $1. At the end of 7 years, the library will be given to the citizens of Platteville. But I asked this question: in the first 7 years of operation of this motel, and that, what happens if they go broke? The answer I got from the city was they won't go broke, and the contractor confirmed that they will not go broke. Well, I ask you this question: did General Motors go broke? Did Chrysler Corporation go broke? Did Enron go broke? Did the savings and loans go broke? I think that the citizens of Platteville have the right to have that question answered. Who owns the library if this corporation goes broke in the first 7 years? Because I don't know how it's set up. They wouldn't answer my question, but I feel that we need that question answered. The next thing is parking. They covered parking quite well out there. There's like 87 stalls, and I think it's only 77, but I think there's 87 stalls and maybe 90 or towards 100 if you count street parking. There are conference rooms in that motel that hold 100 people. If they manage to land a big conference, where are people going to park?
Okay. This is a question about the council, and it is specifically, I guess, kind of generated by this election and last year. For at least the last 3 years, there has been a race for the at-large spot. We had this exact council forum 1 year ago for the spot that Amy Seaboth Wilson now has on the city council. In the past 2 years, there have not been races for the district seats. The incumbents ran, and no one ran against them. So here's my question. There are some communities that have all at-large seats on the city council, where everybody in town gets to vote for every person in the city council. Here, of course, for the district seats, you can only vote for that district if you live in it, but for your seat, everybody can vote. Should the city council, therefore, convert all of its seats to at-large seats or not? And we'll start with Daryl.
I think that'd be a great idea. The reason why I'm running at large is because I'm in District 4, and that's Ken Killian's district. And at least when I call Ken, he responds on that. So, but having all of the council people at large, like I say, I think that would be a great idea.
Okay, Tom.
Well, there are different communities that have been doing this, and it does make the voter public more astute on what's happening with their city councils or their village boards. I haven't thought of even considering that for Platteville. So I'm going to have to basically say that is a very good question that I think should be reviewed by the city council and by the voters of Platteville.
Okay, Angie.
I can see pros and cons for doing it both ways. An advantage to doing it all at large is that you do get a say on everybody who's on your council, not just half of it. A disadvantage that I can see is, especially here in Platteville with all the college students we have, if you had a group of students that got together to run for council, you could potentially end up with an entire city council of college students with 8,000 students in town eligible to vote. They can sway the vote one way or another relatively easily. With it being in districts, they can't vote for the individual district representatives, which I think is advantageous.
Okay, the last 2 or 3 questions are kind of more general questions about things. What is your vision for the city, and where do you think the city of Platteville should be in 5 years? And we'll start with Angie.
I see Platteville continuing to grow over the next 5 years. I would love to see new housing developments go up with the improvements already that I'm seeing where the Kallenbach properties were. I think is going to be very advantageous and attract more people into the community. I would like to see the industrial park full and expanding on the south side of town. And I'd like to see the area out by Walmart filled with new businesses, whether it be small businesses or the larger corporations like Walmart, Menards, Farm and Fleet. You have to have a balance of all of those to keep a community going. I'd like to see our Main Street continue to stay almost full or even full. I'd like to see continued growth and continued collaboration within the community.
Okay. Daryl.
My ideal vision for Platteville would be 5 years from now is taxes are so cheap, everybody wants to move here. And the way to accomplish that is our industrial park is full and growing with jobs that pay living wages with benefits. But in a real world, we have to work hard at it on that.
Okay, Tom.
With the growth that Platteville has, its potential, we could have a community where everyone would feel comfortable, would feel safe, would think that they have opportunities for employment, for future employment, opportunities to grow their business, opportunities to learn more, to have a community where one can ride from the university all the way to Madison. All that can be accomplished if we keep looking at the future and looking at things positively. not so concerned about immediate, I don't want to say goals, but immediate ideas that sometimes are not always necessary to discuss. We need to look at everything and to make our community a welcoming community where business is welcome, small business is welcome, children are welcome, senior citizens are welcome. Everyone is welcome to come and enjoy a place where I've enjoyed living for the last 24 years because it is a great community.
Okay, 2 questions left. You can wipe your brow if you like. The next to last question is there an issue that hasn't come up tonight or hasn't come up at all during the campaign that you feel strongly about? And if so, what is your position about this issue? We'll start with Tom.
I don't have a particular issue per se for the campaign. The only thing I'm looking at is what is best for the community as a whole. How are we going to work together to make sure that our children and our parents and our grandparents and the elderly and the university students can cooperate, can live together, in which we can all meet our personal goals, whether that be to grow our business, to live a comfortable life and be able to walk in our parks, to go ahead and feel comfortable with our schools, with our streets, and knowing that we all have an opportunity to help the community.
Okay, Angie.
Can you repeat the question, Steve?
Is there an issue that hasn't come up tonight or hasn't come up at all during the campaign to this point that you feel strongly about? And if so, what is your position on it?
The one thing that I think is important, and it hasn't really come up, at least directly, is I think there's a certain amount of accountability. The council needs to be accountable to the residents of the community. The city manager needs to be accountable to the city council. And the city as a whole is responsible for being accountable to the residents. So we need to make sure that we're following the rules and the laws and the regulations as we've set them up, because they were designed for a purpose, that we're following through and being held accountable for the actions that are being done, instead of looking at short-term satisfaction or gratification, looking at that long-term impact that a potential change has on the community.
Okay, Daryl.
I think an issue that hasn't come up tonight very much, or there has been no questions on, is taxes on that. Our governor in the State of the State speech bragged that taxes in Wisconsin have gone down the last 4 years on that. Well, when I got my tax bill, it was higher than it was a year ago on that. So we need to look at what we absolutely need and what we can absolutely do without, and how can we accomplish this for the least, get the biggest amount of bang out of our dollar. If we have to have it, then we need to explore ways to save money doing it.
Okay, final question, and it is the punchline of the whole night, basically, in the whole election campaign. We're going to ask each of the candidates to ask this one last question. Why should people vote for you for the Common Council? And we'll start with Daryl.
Well, the biggest thing is, for me, and why I think I'd be a good councilman and represent most of the people in Platteville, all of the people in Platteville, is that I have never worked for the city. okay? None of my family has ever worked for the city. Therefore, I have no conflicts when voting for what's best for the taxpayers.
Okay, Tom.
I think if people take a look at what I've done in the community, how I've served the city through different committees, commissions, since I moved to the community 24 years ago, I've always been involved. I've been involved in service organizations. I've been involved with a number of volunteer organizations. I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been president of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved in the community as a whole. So I think I have an idea of what the people of Platteville are looking for in a member of large on the city council. And I think I have those qualities to do that.
Okay, finally, Angie.
I think that I bring a different perspective to the council. Being younger, I think it brings some diversity to the council. I believe that the experiences that I've had working in Lancaster and working for the city also give me a different perspective because I've seen how other cities operated. I worked for the chamber when I was up in Lancaster, which is based in their city hall and works very collaboratively with their city hall. So I had the opportunity to see how they worked, and working for the city of Platteville, I've had the opportunity to see how things work here. I've been involved in different organizations, as Steve said earlier, currently serving on 2 of the commissions. One of the reasons I haven't been actively involved in things before was I did work for the city for a year and a half, and prior to that I did have young children, which makes a lot of the stuff very challenging. I think the professional experience I have, having been a business owner, the education that I have, and the experiences that I have would make me a great candidate, as well as the fact that I'm a good listener and I want to do what's best for the community because it directly impacts my children, and I don't want my kids to leave after they graduate from college and move off.
Okay. I would like to thank all of the candidates, obviously, and I'd also like to thank the Main Street program and the city of Platteville, particularly Jody, who has been sitting here shooting all of this for cable and for YouTube, for all your roles in putting tonight's candidate forum on. Also, thanks to Badger Brothers Coffee for the coffee. We should also mention that in addition to this race, on February 17th, there will be a primary election for the Platteville School Board with 8 candidates reduced to 6. There will be a school board candidate forum at the Southwest Education Association office. That's at 800 Washington Street in Platteville next Wednesday, February the 11th at 6 o'clock, and the public is invited to that. Those candidates and attendees who are able to stay are invited to stay afterward, and I would like to remind those listening and watching on TV that this candidate forum can be viewed later, we think, on CenturyLink Cable Channel 36 and on the city's YouTube channel, Platteville WISC, and the Journal will say where you should go to watch the candidate forum before the primary election. So thanks for coming, and make sure you cast an informed vote on February 17th. Thanks.